and happy November! This month I have for you, by request, a wonderful old-time Canadian reel, one of those old down east dance groovers. It's called The Whitefish in the Rapids by Cote, and I grew up with this tune. I've known it since forever, and I can remember my earliest fiddle heroes, Don Roy, Ben Guilmette, all the main French fiddlers, and my mama, of course, playing this tune for dances and kitchen parties, and here it is. And that's the tune. If you're just listening, thanks as always for stopping by. And if you're ready to learn it, let's dive in. So, this tune is in B-flat major. It's one of those classic Canadian B-flat tunes. I have noticed a funny thing as I've traveled through the world of fiddling, teaching workshops and camps, and that is a lot of fiddlers hear the key B-flat and we freak out. Actually, not just B-flat, E-flat, sometimes even F. Something about those flats sounds super scary, but good news, there's no reason for that at all. It's got this weird stigma that just doesn't really apply to the key at all because it's not that difficult. So we're going to use Whitefish in the Rapids, which is a wonderful classic tune, not hard to learn at all. We're going to use it to break any fears that you might have of the key of B-flat. Now here's the deal, before we dive into the tune, the thing that you have to think about to make this work is your finger patterns. We've talked about it in past tunes of the month. You can see my hand here, that my hand is made up of whole steps when I have my fingers far apart and half steps when I have them right together. To play the key of B flat, I need two things. First of all, I need the finger pattern whole, whole, half. Do you see that? I'm spelling from the bottom of my hand, from my first finger, there's a whole step, and then a half step between my third and fourth finger. That's my first component, whole, whole, half. My second component is that I need to play not in first position, as I am here now, a little bit away from the nut. I need to move back to half position. If you put whole, whole, half back at the nut where your first finger feels that little bump at the end of the fingerboard, that's called the nut, you get a B-flat major scale. Just as easy as any other key. Now you do have to make sure that you're using your fourth finger, not your open strings, because that would be an E natural, not an E flat, and that's not going to work so well. But as long as you're using fourth finger and whole, whole, half the whole time, the tune basically kind of plays itself. So if you're new to the key of B flat, while we go through this tune, set your hand in this shape, whole, whole, half, and stay back at the nut half position. They'll be very big, the half steps and whole steps, and see if you can get yourself comfortable with the key of B flat. Okay, here comes Whitefish in the Rapids. I'm going to slow that A section down. 2 pickups. I'll repeat it. Part 1. And that's the whole A section. As you can hear, it's a classic. Part 1, Part 2, Part 1 comes back, and then the ending. So if you wanted to just learn that by ear, just rewind the video and play it through slowly with me 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 times, and you can learn it right like that. But if breaking it down a little further is helpful, let's do that right now. So part 1 is basically just 2 arpeggios. I have a pickup, right, 2 pickups actually, and that brings me to B flat. And because the tune's in B flat major, of course the first arpeggio is going to be B flat major. I have a little neighbor tone to start. There's the B flat major arpeggio. Now it's not starting on the note B flat. It's actually starting on the 3rd, isn't it? Their 3rd finger D. But that is in fact a B flat major arpeggio. Let's try that first part again. B flat, neighbor tone, and the arpeggio. Do just that much again. B flat, little neighbor, and the arpeggio. Next part is an E flat major arpeggio. Now that one does start and end on the root, the E flat. Back at the nut, your first finger. So there's absolutely no shenanigans going on with that. All right, let's try to put it together. Part 1, a B flat arpeggio and an E flat major arpeggio. 2 pickups. B flat. E flat. There it is, not so bad. Notice for bowing that when I have the long quarter note, I'm going to slur the next 2 eighth notes. I call that a buffer slur, and we've talked about it in past videos, 2 of the month. If you're new to that, go check those videos out, or you can just copy me for right now. Part 1 again. Long slur. E flat. That's part 1. If you need a couple more repetitions, just rewind the video. But I'm going on to part 2. Here it comes. And it lands back on that B flat for part 1. Yeah! Try it again. I'm going to start over here on my F. I have a little neighbor tone. Another little neighbor tone. Okay, so if you're listening for your patterns, that's a scalar thing, right? Going up, then back down. And that's followed by a B flat major arpeggio. Again, it's not starting on the note B flat, but that's legal, we can do that. So let's do a little scale and then a B flat major arpeggio. Go, do it again. Next part does a little scale. Right down the scale, back up, and then an F major arpeggio. That one does start from the root. Do that second half. Try it again, down and up the scale, then an F major arpeggio. F major. So that's your turnaround. Little scale B flat, little scale F. Let's put it together. Little scale, B flat, little scale, F major. And then you're going to land on your B flat, ready to go back to part 1. Let's do that again. Turn around, part 2. Good, one more time, part 2. To little scale. Little scale. Back to part 1, B flat. E flat. Now listen, here's the ending. It should sound familiar. tunes of the month that we've done and also tunes out in the rest of your fiddle repertoire, that ending starts just like part 2. B flat major. But instead of continuing on, we need to add the section. Sorry, not add, end. End the section. That's that little pattern that I call Jacques Frere. It's like Frere, Jacques, but backwards. Frere, Frere, down the scale, skip back to where you start, and then you land. Let's try the ending. Start just like part 2, little scale. B flat major, Jacques Frere, and you finish. That's the whole A section. If you need to check out any of those parts, of course, just rewind the video. Do as many times as you want, but let's put the whole A section together with the repeat. Part 1 with 2 pickups. B flat major. B flat major. Part 2 turnaround scale. B flat. Little scale. F major. Back to part 1, B flat. E flat. Little ending. Repeat. Keep your left hand back in the nut. Half position. E flat. Turn around. F major. Part 1. B flat. E flat. Ending. That's the whole A section. Awesome. Rewind as wanted, as needed, as amusing, but I'm going on to the B section. All right, so I'm going to recheck to make sure that I have this whole half finger pattern, and I'm using lots of 4th fingers, and that my whole hand is back in half position. I can feel my first finger touching that little bump, the nut, at the end of my fingerboard. Here comes the B section. I'll play it slowly, see if you recognize anything. Sounded familiar to you because it happens to be, as many tunes before that we've done, what I call a cloud ending. It's the same ending in the A section as in the B section. That's my imaginary sheet music I'm gesturing to in the air. There's my A section, and there's my B section. Same ending, which means you've already learned at least 25% of the B section. Hey, that's nice. Let's do the other percent. I'm going to start right on a B flat major scale. Crossing's great. That's the classic down east in it. All right, so straight up the B flat major scale, it works totally fine if I'm in half position, back by the nut, and I'm using 4th finger. So when I get up to the 5th note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm going to hop back down and do a little neighbor tone. I'm slurring those on the up bow. So I go separate, 4, 5, slur. Now I'm going to keep going up the scale where I left off. And those string crossings work really well because I keep coming back to my 1st finger B flat. if I glue, if I leave my first finger down on the string the whole time, you can see with my hand that I'm not doing this. Right, picking up, putting back down, that would make it very difficult. But if I leave all my fingers down, it's very easy, and I'm going to finish with the same neighbor tone. And that's part one. Let's put it together. Go up the scale. 3, 4, 5, little neighbor tone. Blue finger, string crossings, neighbor tone. All right, so it's like it divides the scale in half. The first half is normal, little neighbor tone. Second half with the string crossings, little neighbor tone. Do it again, part one of the B. Glue it. Good, let's do one more. Awesome. I'm going to go on to part two. Notice I have left my fourth finger down on the string while I play that neighbor tone because I'm coming right back to it. Part two is going to go down. Oh. Yeah, so I start with that octave B flats. It's my fourth finger and my first finger again back at the nut, whole half. Two parts, right? There's the string crossings going down. That's a little B flat major arpeggio with my odd number team fingers, my 1s and 3s. You remember that trick I've showed you in past tune of the month, odd team and evens team for arpeggios. So string crossings, odds team. Try that again, string crossings, odds team. Means just play your first and third fingers. Now we have an F7 arpeggio, if you want to think theory. If you want to think easy hand tricks, just use your evens team. Yeah, you guessed it. Your evens team is your second and your fourth fingers. And for our purposes here, 0 open string belongs to the evens team. I know 0 isn't even in math. In math, 0 is neither even nor odd. I've gotten people in trouble with that one before. But for the purpose of fiddling, 0 is an evens team member. There's that F7. Do it one more time. Good, so that's the part two turnaround. Let's put it together. Start with your octave, first finger low B flat, and fourth finger high B flat. Here we go. The string crossings are going down. B flat odds team. Evens team. And we're ready to go back to part one. Do you remember it? B flat major scale. Little neighbor tone. String crossings going up. And here's the ending you already know from the A section. Hop on down, do your little scale. And a B flat major. And there's the whole B section. Let's put it together. B flat major scale, part one. Little neighbor tone. String crossings. Little neighbor tone. Here comes part two. Odds team. Evens team. Good. Back to part one. B flat major scale. String crossings. Up. Cloud ending. the whole tune. Obviously you can go back and put all those parts together and get the tune feeling really comfortable. But before we say goodbye, I'm going to just show you one little fun application, especially for the A sections with all those quarter notes, right? Long, slow. Right? And if you've hung out with me on Tune of the Month before, you remember that I think of quarter notes, the long notes, as representing possibility, right? So I could decorate any one of those long notes. They're fine, plain. But I could do a couple of things to fill them in. Not every time, but just sometimes. Do you remember what they are that we've done in past Tune of the Months? The first is to use a neighbor tone triplet. Right? Did you notice what I did? Rather than just playing one long B flat, I slurred an upper neighbor tone. I could actually do it to both, couldn't I? I like that one better on the B flat than on the E flat, but for fun, just try both again. Neighbor tone triplet. Another fun thing I could do is fill in, right? This works especially well on the E flat. Because I have a skip here between the long note and my next, I could just fill in the note that's missing. See how that works? And it's really a fun variation to put in there. And if you really want to get snazzy, you could combine, do a neighbor tone triplet on the B flat, and then a fill-in on the E flat. Try it. Neighbor tone triplet. Fill-in. Try it again. Neighbor tone triplet. Fill-in. Just those two tiny little tricks elevate the whole tune and make it more interesting and different. Those quarter notes are so powerful for creating that sense of variation where just by doing one little thing, you can make your listeners experience the whole tune in a different way. If you go back to the beginning of the video and watch my first performance of it, if you know what you're looking for, you'll see me treat those quarter notes slightly differently each time. Sometimes I'll do them plain, sometimes I'll do them with a neighbor tone triplet, sometimes with a fill-in. And I got one or two other tricks that I have showed you in previous Tune of the Months that I'm using as well. So I say to you, use your Tune of the Month tool belt, and indeed your tool belt from your fiddling life long beyond, far beyond this video series, and see if you can fancy up those quarter notes to give yourself a lot of variation to this super awesome classic tune. If you would like to see sheet music for this tune, hopefully you don't want to see sheet music for this tune because who wants to read flats, right? But if you did want to see it, what you would do is go to my website, www.mariblack.com. You would subscribe to my email newsletter. And if you're already subscribed, you already got sent the sheet music for this tune of the month, The Whitefish in the Rapids. That's because every month, along with my email newsletter, I email out the sheet music for the Tune of the Month, just a simple version that I write out myself that might be helpful for you. And as long as you're on my newsletter, you'll get this and all future Tunes of the Month right there in your inbox. But hopefully you're mostly learning by ear because that's how this music is done anyway. Thanks for hanging out, you guys. I hope this is lots of fun and it helps you get more comfortable with B flat, creating some little variations, and generally playing some rock and dance tunes. I look forward to seeing you next month here on the internet, or perhaps even sooner somewhere out there in the real world where we can play tunes together like real humans. Have a good month.